10 years ago, in 2011, the unemployment rate in the United States was around 9%. Today, as we are speaking, it's in excess of 6%. Here's what that means in human terms. Today, 10 million Americans are officially unemployed. If you add those with part-time jobs who really want and have been looking for full-time, and with those, quote, marginalized workers that have stopped looking because they're depressed about not finding proper jobs, well, then it's more like 20 million. An unbelievable number for a rich country with enormous social needs. Extraordinary. It was truly extraordinary 10 years ago, and it remains so. And perhaps the most important thing about unemployment is its utter lack of any necessary existence. There's no reason for it. There's no logic in it. And you know, not only were there 9% unemployed back in 2011, and now 10 years later, still 6%, over 6, but on every year in between, there were tens of millions of people unemployed in the United States. Now, there really is no excuse. We know what we need. We need a radical updating and upgrading of our infrastructure, and we have for all those last 10 years. We need to care for our elderly much better than we are doing. We need a massive program of daycare centers to liberate parents, to make it easier to raise children in a fair and supportive and nurturant way. And we have to rebuild our cities. And we can do much more for our schooling and our healthcare system. We have more work than we have available unemployed who ask nothing other than to have a job and be paid a decent income and to do something useful in the community. And I just listed several useful things, and every one of you could add to that list. 10 years ago, besides the unemployment, we began Economic Update to analyze and talk about precisely the economic issues that we're talking about now, including unemployment. We've grown tremendously over the last 10 years, far beyond anything we thought possible. And so to mark our 10th anniversary, we're doing these programs, brief programs, to talk about what happened then and now and what the connections are. You know, the obvious answer to unemployment is employment, jobs. And I want to remind everyone how successful the United States once was in seeing the irrationality of unemployment and solving it with the obvious rational response, jobs. It was the depths of the Great Depression, the 1930s. By 1933, the official unemployment number of the United States, 25%. 1 out of 4 workers in America was without a job. Every single family was affected by that. Educations were interrupted. Personal relationships inside households blew up because there was no money, because they couldn't solve basic problems, food, clothing, shelter, all of it. People left, people moved. Desperation all over the country. That magnificent set of novels that John Steinbeck wrote, Of Mice and Men was one, and The Grapes of Wrath, the better known other one. But both of them explored the cataclysmic personal costs that horrific depression imposed on the American working class. And then a movement developed of anger, of determination not to keep suffering a capitalism that broke down so badly. And the demand of those who rose up, people who made happen the greatest unionization drive in American history, the people who made happen two powerful socialist parties at that time, and a communist party at that time, and the coalition of the communists and the socialists and the labor movement activists. They won something. They won a rational response to unemployment, namely a federal jobs program. The president had to go on the radio and say to the American people, if the private capitalist employers of this country either cannot or will not employ the tens of millions who ask nothing other than a job and a decent income, then I, as president, said Franklin Roosevelt, I will. And between 1934 and 1940-41, when the war solved the unemployment problem in its way, but before that, from 1934 to 41, civilians were put to work, doing a vast array of socially useful things, just like that list with which I began this brief report. The staggering failure in the last 10 years that Economic Update has periodically talked about has been the failure even to remember American history well enough to have instituted a federal jobs program. And let there be no mistake as to why that wasn't done, why leading politicians in the main didn't even talk about it, as if amnesia had taken over and we didn't remember in this terrible period of capitalist crisis what was done successfully the last time this system crashed. And so we didn't have a federal jobs program, and the business community clapped because their biggest fear, their worst nightmare, is a government offering good jobs to millions of unemployed people. Oh yes, on the 4th of July, our business leaders give speeches about the wonders of competition, but they don't want competition from the government. They don't want a government hiring people because then they'd have to match the wages the government paid. They'd have to match the working conditions the government provided. And they don't want that risk, and they don't want that competition. And that's why we don't have a rational response to unemployment. You know, right behind the unemployment problem is the real problem. We have a system that doesn't work for the vast majority of people. And the sooner we face it and deal with it, the sooner these problems, these irrationalities, can and will be overcome. Economic Update has always explored these kinds of issues and raised answers and solutions that have enabled us to win your support. Without it, there would be no Economic Update. Help us for another 10 years. Help us continue and grow. The audience waiting for what we do is growing faster than we can meet it. We need the resources to help us do it. Consider joining our monthly supporters. It is by far the best way to help. In any case, learn more about the ways you can donate and the ways you can connect to what we do. Simply go to our website, democracyatwork.info, and there you will find all the ways available to you. Thank you for your attention. This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work.